Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Getting That Medical Degree. What are we going to talk about today?
So we're going to talk about how to pass the MPJE, which stands for what, Mitchell?
Uh, Masters in Physiology, Joules, and Electricity.
Wrong. It means multi-state pharmacy jurisprudence examination. So for you guys who don't
Okay.
know, this is the pharmacy law exam. So if you want to get licensed in a
Got it.
state, you have to
Fancy
take it for every
website.
state, every single state.
Mm.
If you want to get licensed in a state. Um, yeah. So I think last time we recorded, well, before the previous video, when we recorded back in like December, I was still waiting for my pass results, which I did pass. So I decided to share some tips here.
Yay! Congrats. Congrats on passing, bro.
Thank you. So here we go into the tips. So find the right resources. So every state there's some good resources and bad resources for every state. There's a resource called Pronto Pass, which makes stuff for every state. So there's TLDR. They're usually pretty decent. TLDR is usually pretty good. Pronto Pass varies, it seems like. Pronto Pass says he has a guaranteed pass rate, which I don't really believe in. So I used it the first time and didn't pass. So, yeah. But some states have like preferred like books to read, preferred new packets to buy, etc. So to figure out what's best for that state by looking online. Trust your first choice. This goes for any test that you actually studied for. If you studied for it, there's probably a reason your first choice is that. So don't change your answer. I missed a lot of questions on my other tests because of that MPG and NAPLEX. So don't do that. And don't compare it to work. If you work for a company such as like CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, etc., they have policies they do that are actually stricter than the law. So just because you don't do something at work doesn't mean it's illegal. It means your company is stricter than the state law, which is allowed. Because in law, we follow the stricter the laws, but you're taking a test on the state law, not your work policies. So you have to figure out what your work policy is and what the actual law says, and make sure you don't get them confused on the test. I had some friends fail because of that. So another thing we had to talk about on the channel a lot is active studying. So make sure you're studying actively, not just reading a law book that's 400 pages long. Please don't do that. So yeah, do something actively. So what are some active study methods?
I have no idea. What is active study? Please explain it to me. I said what I do every day.
Yeah, so like Anki,
Okay.
flashcards, um, the Excel method. I don't know if you guys are familiar with some studying YouTubers on YouTube. Please do this Excel method, which we'll do a video on
I've
later on.
actually never heard of the Excel method, so
Yeah,
actually need,
we're actually gonna do a video on that, Mitchell. So we'll keep that for that video.
Perfect. Perfect, because I've never heard of that.
But it's a pretty popular method on YouTube, so we'll touch on that in the next video or one of the videos.
Okay.
Again, this is an active studying sheet slide, so Excel sheet method. Have someone quiz you, which is always good, especially if they're familiar with the material. Anki, any kind of flashcards, so like Quizlet, Anki, paper flashcards. And then the Feynman method. Feynman method is really good. It's very time consuming, at least it can be. But every time I use the Feynman method for like an exam in school, I get like a 90 or 100 on it, so there's that. And then some mistakes to avoid is thinking you know it, so you don't test yourself on it. I think you probably done this a lot, right? Where you thought you knew something, so you skip studying it, and then
Yeah,
you,
so you're like, yeah, no, I know that. I don't need to study that. And then I get a test, and I'm like, if I would have just reviewed it one more time, I would have raised my grade one letter grade
yup.
or something like that. Like, if I would have just looked at it one more time, I knew it, but I didn't think I didn't know it that well, you know?
So the main thing I think of when I think of thinking you know it is what goes on like a pharmacy label. So if you're in the retail setting, certain stuff goes on the pharmacy label. If you're in the hospital, different stuff goes on the label. Okay?
Mhm.
And now, if someone's transferring prescription to you, you have to write down certain stuff. If you're transferring prescription to them, you have to write down certain stuff. Now, if there's a controlled substance, you have to have certain stuff on it. But if it's a C2, certain stuff. But if it's not a C2, different stuff has to be on it. So you see how someone might be like, oh, I know that because I work all the time. I know what needs to be on the label. You need the test, and you're like, huh, I didn't know that actually had to be on there. And some companies automatically put extra stuff on the label anyways, just to cover all their bases for everything. So, like, you don't know if you compare it to your work all the time. And every state's different too, so there's also that. Next step there to avoid is
So
comparing.
how long?
Yeah.
How? Sorry. Go on. Go
No,
on.
that's a question.
How long was your test?
Hmm. I think it's like what 2 hours or something like that. I think I finished in like 20, 30 minutes.
Okay. And how many questions were there?
I think it's 120 questions. I think it's how many it is. So the MPJ you have to get a 75 one to pass, but there's also like fake questions on there that don't count. It's like roughly I think 20 questions that are like fake or something like
Fake
that.
questions that don't count.
It's something like that. I don't have it completely memorized, but it's something like that. The test is also adaptive, so that means the better you do, the harder the questions you're gonna get.
Oh, I hate those.
So by the end of the test, if you're getting a question like who can do the final check on a prescription, which is obviously just a pharmacist, probably fail that exam.
What the?
That's like a very gimme question, and most law questions aren't gimmies. They're all you have to know this obscure detail somewhere in the law and hope you know it. So yeah, the tests are adaptive. The NAPLEX used to be adaptive, but that changed a few years ago, so now it's just a straight test, which is nice. Law tests, that's adaptive, so if your questions are getting very easy, you probably failed. So, but yeah, and then the last tip there is comparing state law versus company policy, which I touched on already. So, for example, like something like CVS or Walgreens may have do something way stricter than the law, and they do it because it's stricter, and because they work in multiple states. And keep in mind, these companies work in multiple states, and they try to keep everything the same. So what they do is probably compliant with every state they work in because they're being super strict on purpose, so they can do that to keep it like standardized versus what the law actually states. So that's it though. Any questions, Mitchell?
No. That was those were all my questions. But yeah, check back to do the Excel sheet because I want to learn that.
Yeah, so that's actually in our list of videos
I
we
hate
record.
Excel,
So
but all right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in into getting that medical degree. So we'll see you guys on the next video.
peace.